Well, it's everyone's favorite time of the month, and that's the time when I'm here to let you know how the Ottawa real estate market did in the month of May 2026. I know, with bated breath. So, on a snapshot level, 1,616 transactions or sales on 4,917 active listings, with an average sell price of $721,270. So that translates into 3 months of standing inventory. What we know about 3 months of inventory is it's slightly in favor of sellers, frankly, but more or less a balanced market. And let's take a look how we're doing on kind of a 6 month graph. Well, guess what? Seasonal adjustments up on price, inventory, and number of sales. Nothing here that is super, super shocking. We typically see either April or May be the peak of the year, and we usually see June fall off. Now, the fact that we saw more transactions in the month of May than we did in the month of April might hint at a bit of a soft start to the year with uncertainty, etc. So we'll see what June brings, but typically June would not keep up with May. We'll see if I have to eat those words in not so many days. How are we doing year over year? Well, you'll recall that 2025 was not considered a banner year by any stretch for sales volume or for prices for that matter. And well, here we are with a fair amount of caution on this particular screen. So if we look at average price, we're actually down slightly from this time last year by about 1%. Sales are down by 10.6%. Inventory is up by 12.2%. So what does that translate into? Well, a 25% increase in the amount of inventory. What happens when you have 25% more inventory? Well, buyers start to have a little bit more say. We start to see larger fluctuations between the list price and the sell price. We start to see buyers that are pickier. Something that we've witnessed a number of times, like from a boots on the ground kind of perspective, is folks will make an offer on something. If they don't get what they want, they'll move on. So, yeah, that's what inventory does. There isn't the same sense of urgency or scarcity. Surprise, surprise. It changes the dynamics a little bit. Now, is this dire? It is not dire. 3 months of staying inventory actually puts us in what's still referred to as a seller's market. We're approaching a balanced market, but we're not even there really. Or at least not in the residential and townhome categories. Maybe a little bit different story in the apartments. But a softer market, more time to breathe. From a buyer perspective, perhaps fewer mistakes being made, which is nice. From a seller's perspective, it's frustrating at times, obviously, right? So, anyways, that's kind of the lay of the land right now. If we look at a breakdown on how we're doing by property type, the story changes a little bit. So single family homes are running at the same price they were a year ago, and there's 2.7 months of standing inventory. Again, that boots on the ground or what's actually happening. Can you imagine that as I'm videoing this, a listing that one of my buyers is interested in has 10 offers that have been submitted? Last night, a property that I was monitoring for a seller who's looking to list a very similar product also received 10 offers. So you see how the wide brushstrokes of the market news don't always reflect kind of niche products, market niches, what's happening on a particular home. So you probably have a story of a neighbor who hasn't been able to sell in a year, and you probably know someone who's had a bunch of offers and went a bunch over list price. It's an interesting thing to navigate. Anyways, at the end of the day, single family homes, 2.7 months of staying inventory, flat on prices. Townhomes, also 2.7 months of standing inventory, and a slight decline in price, kind of almost negligible. What's going on with the townhouses? Well, again, from personal experience, the implications of this, HST rebate that's being offered by the feds has put downwards pressure on any neighborhood where the opportunity to buy new construction from a builder exists. So, the resale market and the new home construction market don't usually follow one another directly, but in the presence of a large discount on new construction, there's going to be, a precipitous effect to some extent on the resale market. We've seen that. So that's where you're seeing, townhomes actually a little bit lower than they were last year. That could explain away a good portion of that. The apartments continue to be kind of their own story. There's 4.8 months of staying inventory. That is a buyer's market, and prices are down 12% as a result. Great time to buy a condo if you're in that particular market. Um, not as happy of a market for the sellers. So there it is. There's May in a nutshell. We continue with this kind of okay-ish year, probably a little bit of federal government insulation keeping us from the headlines that we see in other major markets that are less favorable than ours. June generally is going to be a bit of a drop from May. So theoretically, we've just seen the peak. I'll be very interested to see if that actually plays out, given how late the market started, given the fact that May beat April, which is not usually the case. So I'm not going to make a prediction, but I will say, generally speaking, we've just witnessed the peak of 2026. We'll see what June brings, and stay tuned.